God
Yeah.
forbid you are the killed, and the internet is basically not even split, but it's favorable. Like they're
Yeah.
happy. They're
Yeah.
pretty pleased with that. I would say you've done something wrong or represent
You,
something that is wrong. Let's do it live. Let's
let's do it
let's
live.
let's do it live. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Sedition podcast. I'm Nate Brady alongside this guy. It's
I'm Mike
Smith.
Smith.
That's him.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Well, or listening. Watch the
Or
road.
listening.
Watch the road if you're listening. We've got some stuff to talk about. We're doing a twofer this week. Two for the price of one. It's free, so I guess it doesn't
Same
really,
price.
same price.
That's right.
We won't be having a show next week, but we'll have some shorts and other things. So, I want to front load this. Just do us a favor and hit the subscribe button, the like button, the shares. Whatever. We don't get any money for this. We don't have any advertisers. We don't do anything like that. But we do feed off of those interactions, right?
It keeps us going.
It keeps us
when
alive.
when we see those numbers go, it hits us in the dopamine. It makes us want to keep doing it.
You
so
understand.
Thank you for that, everybody.
If you're here, you understand. Yeah.
Appreciate you watching and listening in.
We
love having you with us. It's December 6th, Nate.
December 6th.
How you feeling this Friday?
I feel like we should have some music come in. Like right after you say that, you said it's December 6th, 2024. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Remember
the old newscast?
Yeah, the old prime time news.
But I get it.
We have some stuff going on since our last podcast. Some interesting news. I feel like I'm going to throw his name out here right now because I don't think we're going to talk about him at all this episode. I feel like there wasn't a lot of Trump news. He's been I haven't even heard him speak, I think, since the election.
I don't know if it's that he hasn't been speaking or if the legacy media got its job done and therefore don't have to cover him until he's president.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, you're probably right.
But my guess is that I remember distinctly putting out at least one Truth Social picture on Blue Sky that was a rant of his that made no sense.
Oh yeah.
So I know he's doing it. I know he's saying things.
I
just don't think the media is covering it because there's no point in covering the crazy man at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. There was some big news that happened on early morning of December 4th. So maybe we'll start right here. I think this is the thing that's kind of been rocking the internet. Or sorry, was it December 4th or was it December 4th. Brian Thompson, the 50-year-old CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was fatally shot in New York early in the morning, 6:45 a.m. Eastern time, outside of the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. So very nice hotel. He was there. For a conference. Police described. What's that?
Just being rich.
New York, being the CEO of a healthcare company that has denied many claims. Police described the attack as a brazen and targeted attack, with the suspect apparently lying in wait for Thompson, and that became more clear when they later found bullets or shell casings with the words "deny, defend, and depose" written on them, which are, as many people know, kind of like the 3 Ds of the healthcare industry. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Man, there's so much to talk about here, and I just want to start off so that everyone understands that we do not condone murder. I know that Nate and I like to joke about things like that from time to time, but obviously this is a horrible thing that happened to this guy. I don't know anything about him or his personal life or his professional life other than him being a CEO of one of the, healthcare insurance providers. And Man, it's a gruesome story to say nothing else. The guy lying in wait and having this sort of vindictive. We don't know what his backstory is, but presumably it's got to be something like, one of his loved ones or somebody that he knows got, had, a claim denied or went through enough stuff, and then something bad happened, and he's had enough. I mean, it was, and he's like, fine, you're gonna play it like this, and then,
I mean, the jokes going around on the internet are basically, right, like, hey, I can narrow down the list of suspects. Like, I'm going to call the tip line and I'm going to narrow down the list of suspects. Just look at, just narrow it down really close and drill in on the millions of people and families who have been denied healthcare from one of these companies, and boom, you'll find him. Right.
All right. So we brought it down from 330 million to 10 million, something like
that. And so, we shared this on on our Blue Sky, and the police say, right, no known motive at the moment. Okay, but now we have shell casings.
You wrote that on the shell casings.
We have shell, motive. And here we have,
hats off at the moment to the New York City Police Department for being just comically inept. I love them so much. I wish them all a very happy retirement, hopefully.
I mean, really fantastic stuff by them. We know just today, just hours ago, they came out with a statement and an update on the case and on the search, because now we're kind of past that 48-hour crucial window.
Guy's in the wind.
The guy is in the. They say they have reason to believe. This is what they get paid for. They have reason to believe that the suspect is no longer in New York City. So that's it.
Okay, hold on. Well, just one question. I have a question. Let me look something up.
All right. Quick. No, okay. I'm prepared. I'm gonna counter look something up. What do you got for me? What do you got?
Here's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So he's not in New York City, or he's not in New York State.
Well, the statement was they have reason to believe that he is no longer in New York City.
Okay, that narrows it down to roughly Earth, I think.
Yeah.
Which is nice. That's
so
they have no idea. This is just a hit and a guy who bugged, and he's middle-aged white guy, and that's not going to get you very far in the US. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
The thing that I have enjoyed, and enjoyed is probably the wrong word. The thing that I have
don't hold back. We can't get demonetized, okay? Because there's no monetization. So don't hold back. I mean,
okay. I'm not holding back. I honestly, I don't. I mean, I can't. I don't condone murder. I'm a pacifist.
I don't either. But I wasn't gonna say it. Okay, that's just my state of mind right now. This is a clear awakening for not only the healthcare companies and their executives, but the American people. Right? It's crazy to see, and we don't use X anymore. We've deleted our X account, but I have gone on there to kind of every once in a while I go to see what are these scumbags? What are the lowlifes? What are these
guys? What are these people thinking?
Yeah, what are these people thinking? And it's wild to see the kind of coming together of, the working class on the Trump side and the working class on the liberal side as a, hey, was maybe this deserved? Wild. This is a wild thing happening right now.
Really, both sides are speaking that way.
Yeah, I mean it's
oh man.
Yeah, I mean no, certainly there's several people on both sides that are like, come on, we can't.
I know that the camps run deep and everybody. There's got to be both sides of the road where I know people who are Democrat, or I know people who are Republican who are very staunchly thin blue line and all this other nonsense. So they're like, very rules and regulations asterisk or adjacent. And so when you see this, they're going to say this is a mob hit and we need to bolster and blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, obviously there's going to be the other side of it. When you tell me about the casings having written those specific words and the situation, I mean, this kind of hit on this kind of person in this level of a disliked profession is clearly somebody who has reached the end of their rope, and they're looking to,
I mean,
fix something in their own way.
you can tell. I mean, first of all, if you have been killed, God forbid, Mike,
I haven't,
you're
thankfully.
still here. God
Oh, yeah.
forbid you are the killed, and the the internet is basically not even split, but it's favorable. Like they're happy.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
pretty pleased with that. I would say you've done something wrong or represent
You
something that is wrong.
you've been a not good person,
Yeah,
objectively.
and I can.
It reminds me of about a year ago when Henry Kissinger died, which we all celebrate his birthday every year.
We just celebrated it. Yeah,
November 29th.
sure.
Everybody remembers. Mark your calendars. And there are just some people who, in their lives, they work to leave their mark on the world, and their mark is just abjectly horrible. And so we don't celebrate their life as much as their death. And
Right.
I don't want that. Don't act that way. The thing that I find interesting, I kind of brought this up. I was going to bring this up a second ago, but we got a little derailed. But I've been enjoying watching the internet go through these spurts, because it seems like every time something big like this, where there's sort of a mystery involved, happens, the internet, decides that they're going to sleuth it out, and they're going to be better than the cops, and they're going to find the guy.
Right.
And so, like, I'm reminded of the Boston bomber, the guy who did the Boston.
They found him very quickly.
The police found him pretty quickly. The people, they sent them after. They were like, "This is the guy." He wasn't the guy. And then there was the Dormer. I want to say the Dormer incident. He was like a shooter in.
Right. The former cop turned cop killer.
Former cop turned. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, this is him in this cabin." And
right.
The internet loves to think that they're onto something.
Yeah.
I think it speaks more to the general mental illness of people who are progressive, like just online all the time, because it's sort of the same as believing like conspiracy theories and stuff. You just get excited and like foaming at the mouth over the idea that maybe something that the collective doesn't.
Right.
And I find it just very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, the internet had a lot of ideas, and they kept putting up pictures of guys who were not the person who are in the police photos.
I mean, yeah, you can look on our feed. We've done a little bit of that in jest as well.
Are these guys next?
Whoa! You can't say that. They put
up a picture of a bunch of well-to-do-looking individuals.
I do want to. The story is
guys were all marked.
The story is a little bit misleading, and it's really, really interesting, because the guy who was worth $50 million and who was getting a $10 million compensation from UnitedHealthcare is actually at the bottom of the Health Group. UnitedHealthcare is a subsidiary of the UnitedHealth Group. Okay. And UnitedHealth Group CEO is right here. So who was shot? No. Brian Thompson down here.
So you've got three, for the people who are listening, he's got 3 rows of pictures here. There's one big head honcho, and then 2 rows of 8? And the guy is like third to last on the bottom row.
Yeah.
So the guy who got shot, I don't know his name.
Brian Thompson.
In the big picture, sort of a nobody in this thing, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's been interesting about this is he is the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, but not UnitedHealth Group. And the CEO of UnitedHealth Group makes a lot more money. Listen, I'm not saying, oh, now they need to go after Andrew Whitty. And
work your way up slowly.
We'll list his home address in the show note. No, but seriously, it's that this is a big issue. This is a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a Ponzi scheme, but yeah, this is a business in the United States that makes billions of dollars every year. I mean, Mike, you and I had to actually do a little bit of research on health insurance companies for a project we were working on a couple of years ago, and we couldn't believe. I had known it was a big industry, But when we started seeing the actual numbers that these companies were taking in, were paying for advertising, were paying to basically we're paying for lobbyists, we're paying for shutting down life altering medications. I mean, I I don't even know what to
I
say.
You said it all, man. It's a scam, and almost nearly all insurance in the United States under capitalist regime, insurance is a scam. I mean, at a high level, you're paying for something that you hope to never use in your life. When you have to use it, you expect it to work in your favor because
Right.
you've been paying into it.
Right.
And the company that you've been paying is financially incentivized to not help you in those scenarios because obviously, if you just give up and go away, they made free money.
Right.
So insurance's best plan, their best, what do you call it? The unicorn that they could hit in best case scenario is everybody buys insurance and we deny every claim so that we are 100% profitable. That means all dollars coming in is straight profit. We pay employees, I suppose, but that's about it. And that's their goal. They want to find ways, and we've talked about it in the past with sneaky things like pre-existing conditions and just other ways to carte blanche deny coverage to certain expensive procedures needed to people, or make them go through hoops, or make it like voting, make it so that it's so procedurally annoying to do things to get what you actually need that you go, fuck it, and then go somewhere else and do something else.
Exactly. Um, so needless to say, a lot of people on the internet are not very
They're
upset.
upset.
Yeah,
They're
not very
upset, but not the way that you would think.
Not the way that you want them to be, maybe. And I want to
Let's say
share.
that they're not very sympathetic to the notion that this guy didn't have it coming. Like there's a very large swath of people out there that are like, oh well, is that going to fix anything?
Right. So I think everybody knows, if you follow us, if you've been listening to us, we are believers in Medicare for all. We believe that healthcare is a human right. You shouldn't be denied both for pre-existing conditions and for the amount of money that you have in your bank account. And I'll say that Nina Turner on the 4th, and I don't have timestamps on this. We can get into that later, but I don't want to talk about Elon Musk today either. Nina Turner said, "No one should have to go into debt because they get cancer. That's not a radical statement. That's a rational statement, right?" And I think we all agree with that. And I mean, I think most people agree with that. But there are people, very prominent people, that believe this: if someone gets cancer and can't pay for the treatment, then they should die. This is the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which is famous for making pretty ridiculous statements like this. But let's be honest, there are CEOs of these healthcare companies that believe exactly this. How could you not? I mean, this is basically what your business model is. If you have cancer and you can't afford to pay us for it, or you're already, at your out of pocket, then sorry.
You've done everything that we can.
Yeah, you've done everything that we can. You're gonna die. And basically, I can't go to my shareholders and say otherwise, because that hurts our business model, and that's why people are upset.
The bottom line.
That hurts the bottom line.
And that's really what it comes down to, is that if you go to another country, if you go to the United Kingdom, as a simple example here, and you get cancer, you get treatment for it. That's the end. Doesn't matter how much it costs. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a tax burden on the populace, and overall it costs less than the health insurance we're paying for here per person. So why not do that?
Right.
Like, why not have a nationalized health service like that? And we look at it across every country that's enacted it, and then a couple of states even have had small versions of it. and it's wildly successful. It's cheaper, and people live better lives because of it. I want to hear the argument against it, other than, I mean, the Republicans will tell you that it costs more, but it doesn't matter, because what they say is 99% lies anyhow. But
it's usually some distortion of the, of the facts.
yeah, they'll say things like, well, you have to stand in long lines in the UK. Oh, you can't see your favorite doctor. You can't go to this specialist or that specialist. And by and large, all those things are false.
Yeah.
The lines are no longer than they are here. In fact, they're shorter than most emergency room waiting rooms in the United States, because our emergency rooms are completely overrun by, guess what? People without insurance, because they can't go to their GPs.
Right.
Well, we call them primaries, but, and then you have another problem is you can't go to this very particular specialist. Well, I don't really think that people who need that actually care. Like, you want the best care you can get, but if I can get any care versus no care, that's a step up.
Who's your favorite life-saving doctor? I don't have one. I need one. Like, if I have cancer, I don't have my favorite cancer doctor. I just need to get the care that we think everybody deserves. I mean,
like when I tore my meniscus a few years ago and I had to go in to talk to an orthopedic surgeon about it, I didn't care who the guy was or like what his stance was. I was like, is he in network? Am I going to have to pay several $100,000 to get this taken care of? That's the way people think. They're not thinking about the best doctor versus the next best doctor. They're thinking about, well, do I have to sell my house to continue living?
Right.
What kind of life do I have to live?
Exactly. And I mean, that those kinds of problems bubble up. And that's another reason why emergency rooms are always full, is like, my dad had a heart attack Christmas Eve, I don't know, 20 years ago now. And, he had been in a lot of pain and feeling things for, 2 weeks, a week, maybe 2 weeks up until that moment. And he didn't want to go to the hospital because he didn't have insurance. So what would that have meant? But then look what happened,
and he probably doesn't have health insurance, so he doesn't have a primary doctor that he could go to on a regular visit, just saying like, I got these chest pains and I don't know what to do with it. And then they would have got out ahead of it and maybe done like angioplasty or something to open up and preventative
medicine. Oh my God.
Which is cheaper than emergency medicine. So like,
and keeps people out of the emergency rooms. It gets people thinking more about their health. Gets people asking more of the right questions. It's healthier. We listen. We understand all. We know all the reasons why. This just makes a ton of sense. But for some reason, we had a vote on the floor this morning about, maybe I can pull it back up here. What was it about this morning? We spent 1 hour of the House's time voting on whether we should teach crucial communism in classrooms.
Critical communism. Yeah. So dumb.
I mean,
is communism really, are we going back to the Red Scare? Who are the communists we're worried about? Are we really worried about the Chinese version of communism? Which
Republicans and Democrats, they both agreed on this. I want to say that we're working together. This was a bipartisan resolution. It did pass overwhelmingly.
Such a dumb thing. Like, look at it. I mean, it speaks to the rot in the political system, right? Because if you're a Democrat, you know that this is just grandstanding. It doesn't actually do anything.
Right.
But if you go as a no vote or you go as an abstention, then someone's going to either primary you or Republicans run against you in your district, and they're going to say, this is the guy who wouldn't stand up against communism, which isn't a problem. It's not something Americans need to worry about. It hasn't been. So like, you have to make this vote that make the Republicans look better because they're doing nothing, but they're doing the right kind of nothing, rather than dealing with things that people actually care about, like healthcare costs and grocery costs and the cost of living and buying a house and all these other things.
So,
we're doing Red Scare nonsense.
I mean, it's great, isn't it? Great. We got the House back in session, and we're taking care of that. So. All right, let's move on. We will give updates, I'm sure, as we get them in for the suspect in the Brian Thompson shooting. But
we've got more to say on that, don't we?
Do you have more that you want to say on it? We've spent about half of the half of the show on it.
Several prominent health insurance provider companies like this have taken down their people's pages so they don't have the pictures or the bios for their top brass on things. So like Providence and a bunch of the others have basically said, whoa, got to get my CEO off the website, otherwise people will target him.
Yeah, that
I'm like, that speaks pretty plainly to the problem, doesn't it?
You here's another thing that speaks, I think, both pretty plainly to the problem, but also like, oh, did we accidentally find the solution to the problem? So if Blue Cross Blue Shield made a very untimely announcement on the 4th, where they said that, and this is just insane to me. They said that they're now going to limit anesthesia coverage if it goes outside of the allotted time frame during a procedure. So basically, they'll say, like, you're having this procedure, it's expected to take 2 hours, we're only going to cover up to 2 hours of anesthesia. If for some reason they have to keep you under for longer, 2.5 hours to 4 hours, whatever, you're going to be liable for that extra time, and you're going to have to pay that out of pocket, which is fucking insane.
Let's talk about that particular thing for a second, because I had a friend all through college and beyond, who's both of his parents were anesthesiologists, and it was a fascinating view into the world as basically an observer, because anesthesiologists just got to monitor your vitals to make sure that your breathing and your heart rate and those things continue, and that your sedation levels keep you under, right? So they get to see things like surgeries and whatnot firsthand, 2 feet away, and they know what goes on there. And so one of the things that I found interesting there is they say often, and this is true for many, many, many hospitals, and many surgeons will do this practice as well, because it's a good faith procedure. Say you go in for having your appendix out, and that now laparoscopically, that can be done in about an hour. It's not a long procedure. It's minimally invasive, 3 holes in your abdomen, and they do a laparoscopic with 2 controls to cut and then 1 that's visual.
Okay, and really deep here.
But so what happens is they get in there and they perform it and they tie it off, and then they do an exploratory look around with the camera to try and see, just to make sure they didn't accidentally puncture, pleural space, they didn't accidentally like puncture something else, didn't tear a vein, etc. And if they find something that's untoward, say you have a lesion or a growth or something on the inside, which many of us do, that are all benign and there's no reason to worry about it, but if they see that, they'll continue the exploratory surgery. And so your appendectomy could last anywhere from an hour to like 4 hours, depending on what they find and what they do.
Sure.
Well, okay, now you've got your health insurance company saying, no, we're only paying for the average of, say, 55 minutes of appendectomy sedation time, and your doctor is trying to get ahead of something that might be life-saving. If they find a precancerous tumor in your abdomen that no one else would have otherwise found, they can treat it beforehand. And if they find something to look at, they need to explore that. Well, now you've been on the table 4 hours. You've got 3 hours of anesthesia money that you now have to pay, because the doctor's trying to save your life, and the health insurance is saying no.
Insane. Literally insane. So
that was their plan. That was their plan. They were going to charge you that.
They were starting in January.
Lauded horribly.
Starting in January. So they had obviously had this plan for a long time. They were going to start at January 1st, 2025. They had released that information for whatever reason on the same day. That nobody stopped and went, hey, if we release this on like the 12th, maybe we won't get as much pushback. Well, they released it, and sure enough, I mean, the internet got hold of that, and they dragged them all over the place. And what happened? They reversed it. They were like, you know what? We're not going to do that. Actually, now that we think about it,
they were another one of the ones that took down their members page on the thing. So you don't even know who their staff is, like who was behind that decision, what the CEO name was, what he looks like. And so when you ask me, is this maybe a solution? I respond with the same way. This is what my wife said last night. She said, why should CEOs feel any more comfortable on the streets than our kids in schools?
Exactly. That's fair.
So
That's fair.
if this is how we have to live our lives in this country, then I guess you're accepting that and we're accepting this.
I mean, listen, I don't think it is hyperbole to say these CEOs of these for-profit companies
Right.
literally in a lot of cases are in charge of your life. Like they make life or death decisions for you, even trumping your doctors. Your doctor
Yeah.
says you need this surgery, you need this medication, you need whatever to save your life, and the insurance companies say, I don't think they do. Uh,
No,
so
and again, they do the runaround. I was telling just a moment ago about how I had torn my meniscus, and I go to my doctor. I have pretty good insurance, and I've been seeing my doctor for the last 30 years, more probably. And I'm telling him about my pain, and he says, "Well, I'm a doctor of like 50 years. That's a torn meniscus, but the only way we can tell for sure, and like the only way we can, do anything, say we want to go to a surgery or we want to go to an injection or anything like that, is to prove it first. So we have to do an MRI. Well, you're never going to get an MRI with your insurance until you've done an X-ray first. And you don't need an X-ray, and the X-ray will never show anything because it's a torn meniscus, but you have to do it first."
right.
And so I go and look at that, and my MRI was completely covered by my insurance, but I had to pay $150 for my X-ray that I wasn't necessary. And I had to bring it with me and show it to the tech and say, "Look at this X-ray." And he goes, "I can't see anything. It's an X-ray. It's not going to show me anything. Get in the MRI machine." So that's the reason that nobody likes health insurance. They make you do this nonsense.
So in part, the reason for the reversal was obviously a public outrage. The American Society of Anesthesiologists also called the policy appalling, obviously, and argued that it would compromise patients' care, which basically that's everything that insurance companies do. And then maybe a little tidbit of, do you want your CEO murdered in the streets? So like maybe all those things played a role in that. Um, so I'm glad you kept this on this because I had totally forgot about the Blue Cross.
Yeah, no, it's
Blue Shield
I
thing.
mean, there's a lot there, and I think about it because, like, imagine the amount of hatred you'd have to have for this guy. Like, just thinking about the shooter again, and this particular fellow who got shot. Like, you said, it seemed targeted. Like, he
Oh, for sure.
was determined to find. He knew where he was going to be.
Right.
He knew where to stake him out.
He waited.
He
Yep.
had he premeditated. He had written,
Right.
inscribed basically into the shell casings, like, "This is it. I'm going to get him."
Yeah.
And he stalked him to this point where he knew he'd have him alone and in free range fire. And I think there's video of it, but I wouldn't recommend looking.
The video is, have you seen the video?
No, I refuse to see that. I'm not.
I mean, it's not very graphic. I mean, the
guy just kind of steps out between the cars or something, and then just
right. But I mean, he's cold and calm, and he makes sure he gets all three because it even looks like the gun jams, which maybe writing on the looked like it jammed a couple times, like maybe writing on the shell casings isn't great for but whatever. So it looked like it jammed, but he was determined to get nothing was going to stop him from getting all three of those shots off. He wanted he
had a goal, and he was determined.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think about what we joke about motive, but like what in his life had happened that had driven him to this point.
It looked like
decision.
You look at the guy. I think they have security footage of him in a hostel in New York, where he had pulled down his mask supposedly because he was flirting with the girl that worked there or something. And he just looks like he's supposedly 6 feet. He's tall. He's like a handsome looking guy. He just looks like a regular dude.
Isn't this the other guy? I thought that was the guy the internet found. I think that's not even the right guy.
Oh, I don't know. That the last
the guy that looks like Timothy Chalamet, like he's nice looking.
Last I checked on the most recent like reward for information leading to the capture of this guy, he did look like he looked like this handsome gentleman nonetheless, right? What? So your question basically is what could happen to a guy like that? And I think I've talked about it. sadly, because I've struggled with anxiety all of my life, and I have a son that is in first grade, and school shootings
Yeah.
is something, obviously, because I'm so politically active, is something that I think about obviously way too much. And
Right.
the morbid thought has crossed my mind that if anything happened to my son and my family that was a direct cause of something that a politician could have stopped,
Right.
who am I going to blame? And what happens when I have nothing left? And we're putting a lot of people in that position right now.
We are. It makes me think about, um, those the Sandy Hook families and the one from the thing where they were suing Alec Jones.
Right.
And it makes me wonder about like these, if you can't win civil damages in these sorts of cases, or you start to feel like your politicians are the ones who are letting you down. And if I lived in Texas, I would feel that way all the time. There's a shooting in Texas every year at like a school or the mall or whatever. And Ted Cruz and all these ghouls come out and they talk about how tragic it is and how it's mental illness and how it's everything but the guns for about a day.
Yeah.
And then they don't talk about it anymore.
Never
and
again.
Say they campaign on the Democrats are coming to steal your guns.
Right.
And I feel like at some point, if like you said, if my family were a part of that, I would start thinking some very dark thoughts
How
about
could
the
you
politicians that are elected in my districts and whatnot.
Yeah, so I mean, I like you said earlier, we don't condone violence, but I am not saying that obviously what this guy did was the right thing. What I am saying is you cannot call it a senseless act of violence anymore, because there is sense behind it. You can understand what happens to a person that can get them to that point. And what's the counterpoint? Tell me when a company denies insurance for your child, life-saving care, and you can't afford it and your child dies, is that company not at fault?
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
like the thing you had from the libertarians up there. I mean, some of these people are happy with sentencing you and your families to death.
there are people that
That's the
believe
price of doing
yeah,
business, according to them.
there are people that believe
And
if you are
so,
too poor to pay, then you don't deserve to live. And wow, just wow.
wars have been fought over less.
Yeah.
So I don't, we don't condone it, but definitely I understand it.
Right.
I can see that perspective. And like I said, the end of your rope, I know what you can do in this country. You can buy a gun at a Walmart. And I'm sure that's what this guy thought. He's like, I can't afford for his kid or his wife or whatever, but he's got $100 in his pocket and he can go buy a gun.
Okay.
Dark stuff, man.
Yeah. Um.
You know how I know that he can go buy a gun?
I'm sorry. I wasn't just pausing to pause. I thought you were gonna just tell me.
Because police are selling guns now.
Oh, what a transition! I should have known better. I was still in the dark place.
Well,
keep me in the dark place. Let me.
You're going to stay in the dark place.
I think this is what you're about to talk about next. Let me bring this up. And yeah, share with us a little some of your thoughts here, because what the heck is this?
Whoa,
do you guys want to what in the world?
You got added, and I don't see how to close it.
I don't see any way to close it. What just happened there? Incredible. Yeah. All right, go for it.
So this is a story that CBS News was running, and it's basically about this growing problem, although it's been a problem for a long time, of police precincts across the country having their budgets swell because people are afraid, and you're hearing a lot of stuff going on more recently, but earlier as well, of just like violence going up and break-ins and all this other stuff. And so they keep bolstering the budgets of their local police enforcement. And what that ends up doing is not hiring more cops, which you would think, but some towns don't need more cops. They're stocked well enough. So what they do instead is they buy guns. They buy guns, they buy riot gear, they buy tanks, at least in a couple of cases across the country. They buy cyber trucks that they paint as official police department vehicles, and they have surpluses every single year. These police offices have more guns than they know what to do with. And so what they've started doing is having a buyback where they say, if you're a police officer in this precinct, we know you're trustworthy. So you can buy one of our old guns, or many of our old guns, at a reduced rate. So why not buy this M134 Gatling style minigun capable of shooting 6,000 rounds of ammunition every minute? And the cops buy these guns, and it turns out they're selling them to gangs and Mexican cartels and all sorts. So we have a gun problem in this country, but moreover, we have a police problem in this country.
Can we just take? I'm sorry, I'm just stuck. My ADHD brain is stuck on 6,000 rounds of ammunition every minute.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell me 1,000? I'm sorry, 100 rounds a second? Am I?
Yeah.
What?
For the people who have difficulty picturing this, do you remember the movie Predator? It's the guy who mows down the entire forest at the end there, just trying to get it down. It's a multi-barreled chamber that's spinning on its axis, and it's firing a bullet like every half second.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking minigun style, Gatling style, rotating, fully automatic weapons. I mean, these were weapons of war when they were invented for World War I in the trenches, but now you can, if you're a strong enough dude, you can carry it around, or you can mount it on the back of your truck if you're going to war. And these are guns that should never, I don't care what your Second Amendment position is, no person in polite society should have a gun like this or anything like this. Personally, I don't think you should have AR-15
rounds a second.
Yeah.
I can't even. Okay. Sure. Yeah, that's great. Where's this in? Iowa? Okay. I'll keep that.
So this story for the people who are just listening is this is straight out of Adair, Iowa, with a population of less than 800 people. They have a 3-person police department, and they keep asking, because the budgets are so big, they just buy machine guns and weapons of war every time their budget's refreshed every year. And then they sell them for personal profit because the old ones have to go out to make room for the new ones.
So the very honorable police chief Bradley Went was using his position to acquire these weapons and sell them for personal profit. Sell them to who?
Yeah, like I said, to sell them to either gangs in other states because they don't want that problem at home, or more likely selling them across the border so they would make illegal deals with Mexican cartels and the like.
Wow, this is insane. So what we're doing is like legally giving these police offices in places like Iowa the ability to buy these guns, to get these guns, but then what they're doing is turning around and distributing them to, it says here, 23 U.S. states, including Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., all over the place. Looks like Northeast, California coast. So this just one place in Iowa is like, yeah, let's get a ton of these guns.
It's not just happening in Iowa.
But yeah, that's the problem, right? It's not just this one place.
Yeah. The other thing that happens, and this is, I think, more common because it's selling it to Mexican cartels and gangs and stuff are obviously extremely illegal. But what more likely happens is this is an incentive program where like cops pad their pay by getting these, legacy guns, we'll say, because they're being replaced by new ones every year, and then the old ones just go down to these cops, and they go across state lines to gun shows, and they set up a booth and they sell these guns that they have acquired themselves personally, and they sell them at gun shows to make a little bit of extra money on the side, and that's a weekend gig for them ostensibly. And so then where do those guns go from the gun show, Nate? They go into the hands of the people who I just said definitely shouldn't have them.
26,000 guns were traced from crime scenes back to government agencies between 2017 and 2021.
That's the other side of it. I mean, we're talking about gun purchases in police precincts mainly, but there's also this aspect of police offices confiscate as a matter of evidence in cases weapons on the street or from gang members and etc., or just because grandpa went crazy. And then they keep them in the locker throughout the duration of the trial. And then once the trial is concluded, there's a limitation, a period where you can't get rid of the evidence. And then there's an evidence disposal period after that, where it's sort of left to the police precinct's discretion as to how they will dispose of the evidence once the trial is concluded and, everybody is happy with the outcome. But if it's a bunch of guns, well, you don't have to melt them down or burn them or crush them. You can just go to a gun show in the neighboring state and sell them for free money.
Well, there is good news in this story, at least. It sounds like as of January 2023, the ATF decided we're going to vet every machine gun application to confirm at least a legitimate government agency has requested it. How does that help? They're coming from government agencies.
Yeah. The government agencies are behind it. And it's actually worse than that. The longer you get into this story, the more you find that there's been a position for the longest time of the ATF not pursuing any legal or criminal investigations against law enforcement agencies of any variety. So they wouldn't look at police precincts. They wouldn't look at sheriffs. They wouldn't look at anybody. They wouldn't look at Border Patrol. They don't care if you're acquiring guns illegally. They had a no hands-on policy. And this change was a very niche change for a very specific problem. And hey, there's the guy.
No kidding.
And it was like, okay, so it's Biden's ATF, but well, Nate, do you think that's going to stick around in about a month?
No, that's gone. That's
do you think January 21st that policy is going to remain in place with the Trump administration's ATF?
No chance. Yeah,
0% chance. The free market will figure it out. What a horrible time to be alive.
Wow. Okay, that was a refreshing story. At least that was a little bit more uplifting.
I think that it opens a more broader narrative, and I wanted to bring up some more news, which is a show that we love, Cody Johnston and Co. They do a great job of going over things like this. And they have an episode called, it's entitled "Maybe Cops Shouldn't Have Guns," and they do about an hour-long deep dive into the reasoning behind that. I 100% agree with it. And this article right here, I think, tells me more than I need to know about cops not needing to have guns. What I think, and I posted this on Blue Sky, but I think cops need to have a notepad, a pen, and maybe like a billy club, maybe not, maybe that. Common sense, definitely, but they don't need guns. If you have a scene or a situation where you need to have armed enforcement officers, that's what SWAT teams are for. But your general run-of-the-mill beat city cops, they don't need guns. And they certainly don't need machine guns. And they certainly don't need tanks.
They definitely do not need machine guns. Yeah.
They don't need any of that. They don't need riot gear by and large. That's for the SWAT team again. And so I think that there's a very real conversation to have here about how do we, as a society, talk about, because this happened before where we were talking about trying to quote defund the police, and this is precisely what we meant. We really meant demilitarize the police, and we need to have a conversation in this country, I think, about demilitarizing the police, and we need to have it in a way that the right can't spin it into we're trying to make everything less safe.
I mean, we
want things to be more safe.
They'll find a way. I mean,
of course they will. But
if
we need
you
to
say, hey, maybe this small town in Iowa doesn't need 90 machine guns for 3 officers, and 700 people in their town or whatever it is, you'll be infringing on some right or trying to make their town less safe and whatever. They'll find a way, and that's that.
Well, I'll be quick to point out that they're acquiring guns that no American citizen as a private citizen could acquire on their own through legal means. They have to use either gun show loopholes to acquire, I forget what the term is, but it means like a trophy gun, like one that will be, disassembled or bolted, decommissioned in some way. And it's like an AK-47. You can't own an AK-47 in the United States as an American private citizen. You can as a police officer. They can buy guns that are otherwise illegal for private citizens and have them in their armory to use as a police officer. And then they go around and turn and sell them in this way and bypass all the sensible gun control laws that we have on the books. So we need to have a conversation about, I think, demilitarizing the police and definitely de-escalating their obsession with buying weapons of war. And they certainly don't need to be armed with them.
Well, all right.
Those are the dark thoughts that went through my head before we settled in for the weekend.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left. I mean, there were other things I wanted to go over today, but nothing that we can talk about too in depth. I did want to talk about the Supreme Court case going on right now.
Okay.
They heard arguments on December 4th was a busy day in a case that was challenging Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. So I don't know if you know about it, but Tennessee basically banned puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and other gender-affirming treatments for transgender youth under the age of 18, despite having, whether you have parents' permission and doctors' approval and all of that stuff.
Right.
And so this case has made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. I will say that it is the first time a transgender lawyer is arguing in front of, or an openly transgender lawyer
SCOTUS,
is arguing in front of the Supreme Court. So that's pretty cool. But unfortunately, it looks like the Supreme Court is likely to uphold Tennessee's ban, even though there's a ton of precedent for them not to do so, for them to strike it down. And of course, the Biden administration and Chase Strangio, the lawyer who is arguing for the strike down, say that this law violates the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, which obviously it does. I mean, I think anybody can see that. But what it looks like the opposite side is arguing is this is unstudied, unconfirmed,
right,
kind of medical treatment that that's the route that they're trying to
take.
And
it's on minors.
Yeah.
So I mean, I disagree with their position on it, but at the very least, I can understand it. If it was something else, I mean, this has been widely studied for many, 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 many years. They've studied transgender people as far back as time immemorial. I'm not really concerned about that, but the medicines that are being used, I think, is the chief argument here. And they're saying longitudinal studies are inconclusive as to the safety of children and things like that. And I go, look, is this America or not? You guys are really big on individual freedoms, except when it's the ones you don't like. Yeah. So like, where do we draw the line here, right? What if we as a state decided to ban indoctrination of children into religious sects under the age of 18 because the studies aren't in as to whether or not it is dangerous for their minds?
Right.
That's the next one I'm just going to go off. I think that maybe we just run that in California and see what happens.
Yeah, well, it'll eventually turn into, it'll make it all the way up, and it'll eventually turn into banning Muslims.
Well, I'm going to use the precedents in this court case to make my argument.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And the problem here, the real issue is, the court is set to make a decision on this in a couple of months after hearing, I think all of the arguments on December 4th. And there are 25 other states that basically have similar laws recently put on the books as Tennessee. So, right. If this is upheld, that's a huge problem.
Well, it's going to be the same as the abortion bans and all that. It's meaning that people won't get the care that they need, and they're going to have to take drastic and perhaps dangerous measures to travel far and abroad to try and get what they need.
There are studies that clearly show that transgender people are happier after transition. The suicide rates go down.
go down.
Suicidal ideation is among those people is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So yeah, to the pro-life crowd that wanted abortion ban struck, to the people who have never met a trans person in their life and who they affect in their lives in no way whatsoever,
Right.
you're killing people. You're basically
No,
killing people.
you're sentencing. You're going to end up killing people for certain.
Yeah.
And it's because you're just it's the same thing as like the fear of homosexuals, 100 years ago, where it didn't actually affect you in any single way that you could make sense, except that made you feel icky, and you
Yeah.
don't like feeling icky.
It wasn't
And
your
so
thing.
and so you made it illegal for the people who have that life, and it's just so deeply sickening to me.
I mean, there are
And
people I know in my close circle, unfortunately, of family slash former friends, acquaintances, that spend more time talking about trans people than you would think reasonable for anybody. Probably spend more time talking about trans people than trans people do, and these people have
yeah,
never met a trans person.
no, and again, it's just a person. You and I, we've worked with trans people. I've known trans people. I don't want to put anybody out there. I'm fine you knowing my name is Mike Smith, but I don't need to talk about other
Right,
people that
sure,
way.
sure.
And they're just trying to live their lives. Okay, they're just people, and they're not in your face trying to tell you anything about them or their transition or their lives or their sexuality or anything else. They just want to live their lives. And to me, and Nate, you know this about me, I'm a staunch believer that I'm in the church of mind your business. That shit ain't my business. I don't need to deal with it, but I know you as a human. I can get
Yeah.
along with you just fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel the exact same way, and I understand when it comes to um, gender affirming care for minors that you definitely want to make sure the data is there, the science is there. But I think overwhelmingly the science is there,
Science is predominantly there,
and
and
they're using they're doing a complete distortion of the data and misrepresentation to basically just push across their
their
ideologies.
agenda.
It's
Yeah, no,
it's
and
not
I
about.
worry
Yeah.
this is tangential, but I worry that it's going to be the same sort of argument once RFK Jr. is pleading the National Institute of Health, that they're going to say the same thing about inoculations for children. They're going to say that the science isn't there when it clearly has been for over 100 years,
Right. Right.
and they're going to start making it. You're going to start seeing bans in states for having inoculated children, and I bet you that Idaho goes first. Idaho's going to ban, the measles, Tdap,
Yeah.
and
Well,
rubella.
when all future Republican voters start dying to smallpox at a young age, I mean, what are you going to do? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, you wish it was just Republicans.
No, I know. That's the problem, right? We saw it with COVID. That even though studies show, which is crazy, I don't know if a lot of people know this or even have you sought this data out. A lot more registered Republicans, died during COVID after the vaccines came out than Democrats did, and it was because of this, ideological, this anti-science stance, and this the social media mouthpieces that went out and claimed that the vaccine was bunk and the science around it was bunk, and it didn't just hurt those Republicans, though more Republicans died, but by those people not taking the vaccine, it also hurt Democrats, children, other people,
Humans, again, it
humans.
hurt people.
And we're gonna see that again with RFK's dangerous ideas. Um, this was a pretty uplifting show today.
We'll have more fun ones. There are going to be some shorts next week that'll be funny. I'm sure that more Trump stuff will happen that we can all laugh about.
Yeah,
but we had some important things to talk about today, and I think that it's important that we have a real discussion about these important issues.
Yeah, I agree. So Mike, I think this is a good place to wrap it. We're like we said earlier in the show, we're not going to be back next week, but we'll be returning probably Monday the following week with another podcast. We'll have some shorts. We'll give some updates next week anyway. So
and you can catch us on Blue Sky at any time.
You can no longer catch us on X, the Everything app. So it's not really the Everything app anymore because it doesn't have the Blue Sedition podcast folks on there. How can you call yourself the Everything app without us?
How can you?
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon, everybody.